All right, good morning, everyone. Trust you guys are having a brilliant moment out there. All right, so in case you are new to this channel, I'm going to advise you and encourage you to actually click on the subscribe button. It's going to help you so you can get notification of new videos and are quite insightful and enlightening. A lot of people who have subscribed, they can actually tell that the channel has blessed them more that they could imagine. All right, so in today's section, we're looking at something quite wonderful, and that is to talk to you about absolute adjectives. Well, I think there are two basic reasons why it's important for us to talk about absolute adjectives. Now, the first one is quite simple, is that even seasoned writers, professionals, also goof when they're using these adjectives, all right? So a lot of people, like I've mentioned, including professionals and also language teachers like myself, when we write, when we speak, sometimes we actually misuse or abuse these very adjectives, and that's because yeah, we try to etch them, we try to modify them, and also unconsciously we try to improve on them. And absolute adjectives, by their very nature, they are extreme adjectives. And when you say they are extreme adjectives, it simply means they are adjectives that are 100%. All right. So in fact, you can even call them 100% adjectives, and that simply means they do not make any room for comparison. Of course, it's common for you to grade adjectives. Take for example, let's say you have a beautiful lady out there. You can say, okay, she's more beautiful. This is the most beautiful lady. You can say, I've just graded out adjective beautiful, more beautiful, and most beautiful. That's fine. The same thing is also, applicable to maybe a negative adjective, maybe ugly, uglier, and ugliest. All right. But then for absolute adjectives, all right, they do not make themselves available for gradability, and that simply means you absolutely cannot compare them. All right, not that you cannot be just compare them, you also cannot modify them. They are unmodifiable, which simply means you cannot use maybe words like slightly, almost, nearly with them. Think about this example, and it actually forms one of the common mistakes I tend to listen, or I tend to hear every now and again. Take for example, let's think about the word dead. When someone is dead, all right, it's common to hear people say, "Oh, is he almost dead? Is he absolutely dead? Is he completely dead?" You see, dead is an absolute adjective, all right? When someone is either dead or they're alive. Okay, so if they are dead, they're gone. If they're alive, they're still with us. All right. So once you say dead, the word dead, once it's pronounced, that's the end. All right. So someone cannot be almost dead, they cannot be nearly dead. All right. The once we have the word dead, that's final. All right. And that's because the word is an absolute adjective, it's a certainty adjective. All right. For your information, you see, absolute adjectives, maybe because they are special adjectives, they have also earned themselves, several names. Take, for example, we also call them ultimate adjectives. Ultimate, that means 100%. We also call them intensive adjectives. We also call them incomparable adjectives. And I think this makes a lot of sense because it tells you almost immediately that you are dealing with a set of adjectives that would not yield themselves to comparison of any form. All right. And lastly, we call them non-gradable adjectives. All right. I beg your pardon. I think I wrote non-graded, non-gradable. All right. This is supposed to be non